Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I rise today in support of this amendment. My amendment directs the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service to provide Congress with the quantity and types of weapons, weapon systems, ammunition, explosive devices, armored vehicles, drones, UAVs, and chemical weapons such as tear gas in their possession. Since taking office, the Biden administration has repeatedly attempted to supercharge an already weaponized IRS. According to the watchdog organization Open the Books, the IRS has spent over $35 million since 2006 to stockpile weapons, ammunition, and gear. Nearly one-third of this $35 million, or roughly $10 million, has been spent in the last 3 years alone. The report also mentions the purchase of tactical lighting, optical sights, ballistic helmets, and similar items. This is not a new issue, and it is not new to Oklahomans. The late Dr. Tom Coburn, the godfather of oversight and a great Oklahoman, previously raised similar questions and never received adequate responses from the IRS. In July, I sent a letter to IRS Commissioner Daniel Werfel requesting information on this issue, including details on the accounts that the IRS had used to purchase such weapons, gear, and ammunition, and data on the quantity and types of items used in the possession of the IRS. Information on the specific types of modifications to IRS-issued weapons that have been approved, and the number of the requests that have been approved. This is vital information because Part 9 of the Internal Revenue Manual, titled Criminal Investigation, outlines the modifications that can be made to weapons and process for exceptions. Proper oversight dictates that we understand the process and the practice. The IRS still has not replied to my letter. They must be reminded that Congress controls the power of the purse and has oversight authority. Americans are rightly concerned by the IRS's lack of accountability, and they are frustrated that agencies continue to abuse their power. Mr. Speaker, it comes down to transparency. I fully recognize the historical significance of the IRS and their ability to take down criminal entities. However, the IRS needs to tell the American people exactly what capabilities they have. When the IRS audits an American business or individual, they first and foremost must ask for an asset inventory list. If you don't have one, it's a serious problem. So why does the same agency refuse to provide their own asset list? What other materials are stockpiled? This is increasingly concerning as we look at recent funding increases through the so-called Inflation Reduction Act, in which the Biden administration provided millions of dollars to hire tens of thousands of new agents. I would like to remind my colleagues of the strict rules and processes that are in place on our military as it relates to firearms and munitions. Every military commander must keep a detailed and precise record of munitions, both spent and otherwise. They are expected to measure to the ounce and can receive significant punishment if those numbers do not match up. The IRS should be no different. Today, the number of armed federal agents is rapidly approaching the size of the United States Marine Corps. The lines have been blurred between the IRS's role as a regulatory tax agency and a law enforcement agency. The American taxpayers are providing the funding for these assets. The least they deserve is an accounting of their purchases. My amendment provides much-needed transparency on this issue. Thank you, and I yield back.
Gentlelady yields back.
I'll rise in opposition.
Gentlelady reserves.
Reserve, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is a continuation of the majority party's contention that there are these thousands of agents that are going to be at your door, armed to the teeth and ready to intimidate you. That's not true. It's a good political scenario, but it is, again, the demonizing of people who are trying to catch tax cheats, tax dodgers, criminals, drug dealers, and others, many of whom are very dangerous people and who are very heavily armed themselves. This is a defund the police argument that the Republicans are making. Why? Because they want to somehow intimidate. Now, I frankly don't care much about getting this information. I think this information is certainly worthwhile having, but it is not worthwhile in terms of its intent to continue ad nauseum contend something that is not true. Most of the agents that are going to be hired and have been hired are accountants, tax attorneys, and investigators to go through these voluminous tax returns that are filed by corporations and individuals. Now, this is, again, we could have included this in the report language. This is an add in and then add out language, so it has no fiscal impact. It is unnecessary. And here we are, some 10 days from the close down of government. We're spending time on a number of these amendments, some of which votes have been asked for, while we twiddle our thumbs till February 17th without having resolved that issue. I think it's unfortunate that we continue to misrepresent to the American public that we are trying to make sure that people who do not pay their taxes do not put a greater burden on patriotic Americans, small, medium, and large, who do pay their taxes, and somehow give this misnomer, this mischaracterization, this misinformation that somehow, as they have said over and over again, these armed 87,000, absolutely untrue, are going to be at somebody's door trying to collect their taxes. What we're trying to collect is taxes from some pretty bad people. And the agents we asked to do that work are doing it for their country and putting themselves in harm's way. And some assertion that somehow the IRS has become an army of agents showing up at doors with machine guns is absolutely wrong. But I hear it all the time. Apparently it makes good politics because apparently some don't believe that people ought to pay their fair share of taxes, and that drug dealers who try to hide their money ought to not have somebody come to their door or come to their place of illegal business and say, you're a lawbreaker, you're a criminal, and you owe us and the American people money legally, and you're doing it illegally, avoiding your taxes. So I hope that this aspersion that somehow the IRS has become this armed army that's assaulting the American people is retracted by those who, for political purposes, continue to spew this argument. It is not fair to those people we ask to conduct the law enforcement business of America. Vote no on this amendment.
So, gentleman, reserve or yield?
I reserve.
The gentleman reserves. The gentlelady from Oklahoma.
Thank you. They could prove that they are not hiding anything and not stockpiling weapons by providing me the report that I have requested. I yield the balance of my time to my friend from Arkansas, Mr. Womack.
The gentleman from Arkansas is recognized.
Thank you, and I appreciate the young lady. Let me correct the record on one thing my friend said. He referred to the continuing resolution that expires not February 17th, but this month, so November 17th. I just didn't want him to give the American people the appearance that we had a lot more time, because we don't.
Proximity of the date being this month on the 17th.
Exactly.
If I said February, it was mistaken. I thank the gentleman for correcting me.
Mr. Chairman, I rise in support of the gentlelady's amendment in full committee, robust discussion. I think the information we're working on right now is back in 2018 from the GAO. It's time for the IRS commissioner to give us this information. I also want to congratulate the young lady for the Bedlam battle victory that they had this past week. And I yield back the balance of our time.
I yield back.